This is Nothing But That Sports Talk.
And welcome to Nothing But That Sports Talk. I'm Rafique Louison alongside Shauntay, and I got special guests Jenna and Gabby. Welcome to the show for the first time.
Hey, hey.
You. What's going on?
Nothing much. Still doing what I can, building content like this. So let's just get to know your professions. Like Jenna, why you chose to go for a career in arena host?
Oh my goodness. I'm smirking because that's where I met Gabby. And it warms my heart. Honestly, I've always wanted to be a host, always wanted to get into hosting of any type of genre. And in arena hosting and the whole entertainment aspect of sports is something that I've recently gotten into. I've learned so much from Gabby and the team. And it's just, there's no other feeling like it. It's like a family. And just personally, why I wanted to do it was because this is a stepping stone for me and a goal. It's been a goal of mine. So I wanted to do the in-arena hosting, and it happened, and then the pandemic happened. So we're hoping to get back to it soon, I hope and pray. But yeah, it's always been a goal. That's really been something I've wanted to do and I want to keep doing. So hopefully I just grow from here and continue to hang with my Knicks fam.
What are some of the difficult challenges of being a host, whether it's in the arena or on TV or in video?
Are you asking me still?
Yeah.
Okay. The challenges. I mean, Gabby, you've seen everything up close and personal.
I've been there with you, girl. I've been there right there with you.
Right? I mean, memorizing it. Well, first of all, you nailed it on the head when you asked. It's live. So mistakes happen, different things happen, and you kind of just have to go with the flow. And what I've learned is that you just can't panic. You just have to really just center yourself and just keep going. And because Gabby always tells me this too, I'm like, not verbatim, but something like, they don't know what they don't know, watching you. So you just got to keep rolling with the punches and just getting rid of the nerves, having confidence in yourself, and just getting up there and memorizing things, but not focusing on memorizing them. Ad-lib, have fun, put your own spin on things, and just really, that's the thing, have fun. And that automatically just takes away the nerves or takes away the pressures or anything that's going on. There's always going to be challenges, but you just kind of have to rise above them and overcome. And that's with growth. It comes with many reps. It's never easy on the first go.
That's actually a really good tip, knowing that, they don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. Being a host and not being live, but sometimes having it pre-recorded and at events and doing red carpets. I've learned that, like, if I mess up on a question or I forget a question or something, like, they don't know that. They don't know my script. They don't know what I need to ask them to get across. But I think one of the challenges that people go into being a host or wanting to get into that field is not thinking about it as an interview, but thinking about it as a conversation. You don't want your list of 1,000 questions, and you want somebody to talk to you and have a conversation about you, and not it just being, oh, where did you grow up? How long were you? Da 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 da. What do you want to gain from talking to this person?
Yeah, and I think Jenna also hit the nail on the head too when she said it's about having fun, right? In the Westchester Knicks, we're a team. We have built a culture this season, and shout out to our boss, Genevieve, who really enforced that throughout all of us. And like our first game, the court fell in and we ended up having to be at the Garden and having to like figure it out as we went. And, with the mascot, it was our first time playing at MSG with the Westchester Knicks. So everything was different. Everything was in a different vibe. And we had to like really just go with the flow and have fun. Like we had some fans there, but it was like a trial by fire, right? And it's like, I think we realized then like how much energy feeds off everyone in the team, how much Jenna's energy plays into the crowd. And coming at it with that lens throughout the season, I think has been really important, right? To make sure if Jenna's happy and Jenna's having a good time, that reflects on the entire crowd. And it's that conversation, whether it's with a fan, whether it's with a player, whether it's even with one of our sponsors that we have, or even with our other MC, it's making sure that it feels fun and light and real. And, if there's a word or two that's not correct, no one's going to know. If it sounds good, right, at the end of the day, then it's a successful shot.
Yeah.
And you know what? Too? I'm sorry. I just had a quick thought too. You said, you know, the energy and everything. They don't know what they don't know. Definitely correct. However, the one thing that they will pick up on is if your vibe is off or your energy is low. Like, don't get me wrong. It's being in this type of space, you have to be on all the time, right? However, there were some days where I went and, you know, this was before COVID, I had a little cold or, you know, I had a bad day at work or whatever. And it's really difficult sometimes to actually be like, okay, I got to turn it on and turn it up, even though I just had the crappiest day of my life. That was a challenge that came to me while you were talking.
And I think just even playing to the fans, right? Like we're in Westchester. We get days that there's snow. The game still goes on even if schools are closed. So there'll be some times when it's like a Tuesday and there's a blizzard outside and Jenna will have to hype up 100 fans instead of it being a packed arena. So, you know, all of that comes into play too. And it's one of those things that, you know, it doesn't matter if there's one fan there or if there's 10,000 fans there. You still have to have that same energy every great game. And I think Jenna did a really great job this season doing that.
Let me piss of you.
Yeah. Praise Jenna for her hard work. But let's get into some more into her career in the hosting field. Like, talk about from where you started doing your hosting.
Wait, can you repeat that? I'm sorry. It might be my connection. That's the word.
Yeah. Talk about like where you got your start in the hosting business.
Oh, yes. Okay. Oh man. Hosting. So when I got into the business, I entered through I have a journalism background as well. And I was really a writer from day one. I just kind of tried to weave in those hosting things whenever I could. So any on-camera opportunity that I could really nab as a journalist, I did. And from there, I got random TV hits, different things with networks, and just random things after that. From there, I built a reel, and then really started tapping into the hosting. I started a podcast a few years ago with another journalist friend of mine, and we solely started that in the beginning. Now we have different purposes for why we're still doing it, but in the beginning, the sole reason we did it was because we wanted to both be on camera. We both wanted to be hosts in a different realm. Like, I wanted to do more of hosting, he wanted to do more of analyst work. And we did it to really build reels. So if there's anything I could tell anyone, it's just really create your own opportunities. They're not gonna come, especially hosting gigs, they're not gonna come on a random job page, or really they're not available ever. You really gotta create your own stuff and then either pitch people or hopefully find something. I just happen to fall in it within my writing jobs, and then kind of just finessed a little bit through there. So really anything I selfishly could have done, I did in the most humble, you know, not breaking the law or journalist code type of way, but you know, I really tried to finesse a lot.
Wow, I can tell. But let's just get to see what you're doing right now. Like, can you define the difference between doing your podcast with Jay Sector and doing the hosting for Hollywood Life and the inter-region hosting for the Westchester Knicks? Like, and what do you enjoy doing more?
Ooh. Boss is watching.
This is one that I really try to keep down low. The difference between them all, you know, in a short summary is what I do with Hollywood Life is my full-time job. That is my number one. You know, that's what I am dedicated to, obviously. And the Westchester Knicks is technically a part-time job. However, in my heart, it is a 365 job. You know that, Gab. And then my podcast with Gerard is really, like I said, it really started out as a passion project. It still is. We make the time on our own, as do a lot of people in this chat and, you know, in our circle of journalist friends. We all have side hustles and side gigs that we're hoping, you know, launch to something different and creates opportunities for us. So Gerard and I really take time out of our schedules to do this. Nobody pays us. Nobody, you know, is asking us to do this. This is totally us on our own. So yeah, passion project, my full-time job, and then my Westchester Knicks gig is a part-time job. job. However, I have to say it is the one that is the most near and dear to my heart. That's the one that I really don't tell anyone else, but that's
telling everybody.
Is like, it really is just between the people. It checks all the boxes for me. It really does. And honestly, I have a full-time job. I really don't need to be doing all of the extra work. However, I choose to do it and I love it so much. I've learned countless things.
Yeah, I can tell. I've seen some of your interviews and you're really killing it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And you too. All of you guys, we're all just out here trying to hustle and make content. That's the thing. Like, even when I was running late today, I was like, I will do anything to make sure you get your content, you know, like we can do anything, reschedule, whatever. But I'm glad we all are here.
Yeah, but getting a little bit more into Jenna's hosting life, what are some of your favorite interviews that you've done and what do you love about interviewing people in any industry, whether it's in sports or entertainment or news?
My favorite interview, I feel like I get this question so much and I never have like a set answer, like in the box, ready to go. My favorite interview, I'm trying to think. I try to pull interviews that are my favorites that, you know, I get the most out of, that I walk away feeling like almost on a natural high, just good conversation, good vibes, good energy. It sounds so taboo or cliche to people, but like when I say like energy and vibes are a thing, like I firmly believe in that. When you walk away from an interview and you just feel either fulfilled, you feel like you learned something or whatever, like if you feel anything, that interview was worth it. If you walk away feeling empty, like, okay, I'm gonna go like, I don't know, work out now, like that meant nothing to my life or added nothing, no substance. And it's like, okay, what did you do that for? Why did you take the time? Anyway, that was a TED Talk that wasn't needed. So my favorite interview was probably sports-wise, Damian Lillard, just because he is so intelligent. And not that I didn't think that or sense that or whatever, but, you know, I followed his career, but I never really listened to him speak in depth about certain subjects. And he's just a very intelligent man. He blew me away. Definitely was one that stuck with me. And my favorite like genre to really cover is sports. And it just makes me happy. I've done the celebrity thing for years before I got into sports. And I think I got my fix. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful, it's fun. I have a rare spot that people would love and I'm not taking it for granted, but I'd love doing sports more. I feel more in my zone and calm and happy when I do that.
Yeah, and I know you enjoyed the Damian Lillard interview because everything is Dame.
In Dallas.
It is. Every time it's Dame time, everything is Dame.
Whether it's in hip hop or basketball, everything is Dame.
Facts.
Okay, let's just get to know Gabby's profession a little bit. I understand you do PR and events, so what do you love about doing that job and why you decide to get into the field?
So PR is funny because I joke that if you're a publicist, you know how to do pretty much everything because you have to. When you're in PR, you do events, you do social media, you do communications, you do venue scouting, you do branding, you do consulting, you do budgets, KPIs, benchmarking. Like there's a lot more that goes into it than just writing a nice sentence about things and getting it out there. Crisis communications. You learn how to basically work on the fly and be scrappy and that make sure that that final product is amazing no matter what it took to get there. And so that's really translated for me across some of the other projects that I've done. So I started in the beauty industry, worked in beauty PR for over 10 years. And I remember I was at Estee Lauder and one of my first PR friends was like, there's this job for the Jets shooting t-shirts and being part of the hype squad. We should apply, haha. And I'm like, I know you're joking, but I'm actually going to apply to that job because that sounds amazing. And I applied. I was like a director level at Estee Lauder in the global communications team for designer fragrances, like 37th floor overlooking the city. And on Sundays, I was shooting t-shirts at MetLife Stadium. And I was like, the fact that I'm happier and taking more satisfaction at my time, and like, this is no disrespect to Estee Lauder, it was a dream job, honestly. It just, for me, I was ready to pivot in my career, and this job was my way of pivoting, right? It was like, let me see who's out there, what's out there. When you go to college, you don't realize how many jobs are out there in fields that you're interested in, right? I think that's the biggest learning for me is that And hype squads weren't really a thing when I graduated college. I know I'm aging myself out a little bit, but the Knicks hype squad was in its 11th season this year, and that means I was already out of college a couple of years, when that started. So who knew how to get into it? Or, to Jenna's point, it's like networking, kind of figuring out your path, how to get in there if it's something you really want. And if you're a hard worker and the vibes are there, people will want to keep working with you. I mean, that's the great thing about sports, is that everyone's passionate, because you kind of have to be. If you're giving up your nights, your weekends, your holidays. I mean, we talk about how the players are always on the road for that stuff, but like there's a whole army of people at each stadium, at each network, that also are doing the same things that are making that happen on the day to day, and don't necessarily get that credit. So, you're not necessarily making a ton of money at first. You're giving up all your free time, but for me, I wouldn't have it any other way, because it's the best field to work in. And so transitioning from PR to more of that event space was pretty natural for me, because again, it's the outward facing product, right? It's your brand ambassador, it's communications, it's storytelling, whether it's storytelling on the court, where we're coming up with talking points for Jenna and doing different contests that lend themselves to either the opponent or the season or whatever we want to convey. It's still PR, it's still storytelling, right? That's the one commonality across everything. And people kind of forget about that there's so much that goes into that game presentation. Like, for example, if someone drops a football when they're running across the field, you'll hear "drop it like it's hot" from the DJ. Everything is very thought out and strategic in that sense, where that's where it all really ties into PR and communications, because you're just communicating in a different way.
Wow. That
was a lot.
You really sound like you enjoyed your job.
I love it. It's the best. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I probably already asked this already, but what inspired you to get into it?
I love sports. I mean, I joke about this all the time. Like, I'm convinced my dad wanted a boy at first, my younger brother. I'm sure if he ever actually watched any of the interviews I do, he would kill me, because I always say, like, oh, my brother really knows nothing about sports. It's like the whole joke in our family. And my brother's amazing. He's very successful in his career and whatnot, but we're just very different in that sense. I've always been into sports. Like, if we had one extra ticket, my dad would bring me, and it's something that's been such a big part of my life. Like, I grew up being a Knicks fan, going to Nets games when they were in our backyard in Jersey, Rangers, Giants games, like Yankees. My dad taught me the Yankee lineup when I first learned how to speak. So I was like known as the little kid in my town that knew the Yankee starting lineup. Like, I knew it better when I was 4 years old than I do now. Like, that's just how I've always been, I mean, I'm wearing adult clothing today, but I mean, Jenna can attest to this. Normally I'm in like a sports team hoodie or like a Knicks something, Knicks joggers. It's just something that's such a big part of my life. So to be able to have an opportunity to work in it, to work around it, like, I never thought that was something that was possible, because to Jenna's point, there are so few jobs out there. It's like basketball players who want to be in the NBA. There really are like so few jobs and opportunities. You kind of have to make your own way in and figure out what that path looks like, right? So like, I started with the Jets, but then I realized my Jets boss worked at a sports agency doing live events and marketing, who ended up becoming like a mentor and a good friend to me. I filled in for her when she was on maternity leave at her VP role last year. So, that just shows the power of connection, the power of networking. And through just some of those different connects, I was able to work my way into the Knicks. And, the first time I auditioned for the Knicks hype team, I didn't make the cut. I know this is shocking to everybody, but, I'm a little older. I'm not a performer by trade. So when you ask me to dance and sing and act, like, I'm down. Like, let's let it ride. Let's see what happens. I'll do my little like shoulder shimmy and whatnot. Don't judge me for that. But, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm not going to accept no as an answer. And like, I made it through the day. And then I found out they needed people mid-season. And so I emailed my boss once a week once I found out that they were starting to look for people. And I was like, hey, hope you're doing well. A friend of mine who was on the team said she wasn't feeling well. Next week, hey, I hope you're feeling better. I heard you're a little under the weather. Just wanted to check in. I know you need people for mid-season. And it was like often enough that she knew I was interested, but not too often that I was the annoying person. And by the time I sent my third email, she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I didn't get back to you. It's been so busy with the season starting, but I want you to know I would love to bring you in for an interview. Turns out my Jets boss ended up writing my recommendation for that interview. So everything really comes full circle. And, I've been so blessed to have gotten that job. It's led to so many opportunities, so many amazing people. And I know Jenna said this, I'm very much about vibes as well. If there's a vibe, like we spend nights, weekends, holidays at work. You want to be around people that you vibe with because that's when you get the best work. That's when the product is great. If you're having a bad day outside of the arena and you come in and you're around people that are like, oh my God, and they hug you, it's like you're in like a room of puppies, you know, in the best way, where everyone is so excited to see you, even if they saw you 12 hours before. And it's like hugs. It's like a family reunion every time. Like, who wouldn't want to be a part of that? And that energy translates into everything else that happens after that.
Okay. That's the way you guys explained it. The industry is a lot tougher than what I was told in college. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, what are some of the difficult challenges being able to do PR and events, especially during the seasons where the Knicks, the Jets, the Rangers, and a lot of New York teams are literally in their losing years?
So it's really hard. You don't really think about that. Like, for me, it's an honor to be nominated, right? That's how I feel at every project, every time I walk in the door. Like, we're working at the Rangers. Like, and I'm as a big sports fan, whenever I travel anywhere, I'll try to see other arenas and other stadiums and see how the other teams do their game presentation. And I just genuinely enjoy sports. So like, I have a friend, we do an annual football trip. We pick a different city every year, for example. So not only is it fun, but you get to see how the presentation is. And there's something about working in New York and in New York sports where even if we might be the worst team that we're rebuilding on the ice, on the field, on the court, the level of professionalism that you walk into, you would think that we were a Stanley Cup or an NBA championship team every single year, because that's the level of work that you're going to get. I mean, nobody works like we do in New York, and that translates to the sports teams as well. And for me, that's inspiring. You don't think about the performance. You think, you know, how can we help that? You know, it's even, our jobs are even more important when the team isn't as good, right? It's like, how can we enhance that? You know, again, like if there's a snow day and we're in Westchester and we have 100 fans, we still have to show up and make sure those 100 fans are even louder than ever. Because I think what was really interesting to me, and I don't know if you guys noticed this too with the NBA bubble, there were some teams that really fell flat not having real fans there. And so that really is a home court advantage or a home field advantage. So if there's a way that we can enhance that, it doesn't matter what our score is or what our overall record is. You have to treat everything like you're a championship team, and that's the energy that you need to bring every game.
Wow.
Really?
I'm just gonna get to the next question. Gabby, what do you love about the sport of basketball from when you first seen it?
Oh, everything? Is that a viable answer? Like everything, literally from the sneakers to the game itself, to the strategy, to the players, to the energy. It's fast paced. It's exciting. You know, I don't know. There's something like even Space Jam. Space Jam was the first movie I watched on quarantine, and I remember yelling at the TV, being like, "These monsters are trash. Get them off the court!" Like it's just something about it. It's the energy, the excitement. We were talking about this before we started recording. Like I watched ESPN's 30 for 30, Reggie Miller versus the Knicks, and it's literally heartbreak every time. Like it takes you back. Like you remember what you were wearing. You remember what was happening on the court. You remember the record. I mean, we were talking about this before. There's something about basketball, especially, that for me, it just, I don't know, it taps into all of that, the excitement. And you know what, even if the Knicks have the worst record, when they go on a run, especially if it's against a good team or if there's a big block, there is nothing like Madison Square Garden. Like
nothing like
don't
it.
at me about that. There is nothing like that. Like when Mario Hezonja had the block against LeBron, the Garden went nuts. Like I said, you would have thought we won a championship. Mm-hmm. Felt like it in that moment. But that's what I love about it, the energy. Everything from tip off to what's on your feet.
Same question to Jenna.
Oh my gosh. And that was, what did I like most about the NBA, just or in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Similar to Gabby too, I loved sports growing up, and I think that, so I have one brother, and my dad, and he'll admit this to this day, he favored my brother when we were kids because my brother was into sports so much. There's actually in my basement, there's a whole shrine of my brother, and then there's like one photo of me. I'm so proud of that one little photo. But And I always would go to all the games. My brother played every sport. My dad made him do every sport. And I would sit there, watch the games, learn just so I can like be accepted by them. And that's kind of, it started out as like an annoyance. Like they would drag me to all the games. Then I found a passion for it because I wanted to be close to them. Then I started playing and it was fun. And then I realized that I'm 5 foot and that's not really happening. So I should just write about it. So that's how I really got into it. But like, I mean, there's just nothing like the NBA. I know I'm biased because I have an NBA podcast, but it's just the league in itself, just everything about it, the vibe, going back to the vibe and the energy. There's something about the NBA that it just makes you so happy. The culture, everything, it's athletes. It's a league that allows its athletes to get as close to its fans as possible. That's what I will say I love about it the most.
Wow. Everybody has their passion for basketball. Wouldn't you say, Shauntay?
No, I'm 100% agree. Gabby, you said something that I thought about, and I was like, oh, she's the girl. She's the girl. Every game, I'm like, when the hype team comes out, I'm like, give me the shirt. I am here. Pick me. And then people throw it, and I'm like, that's not. I'm the one. I love collecting every free stuff. I think I have fingers, the little stress balls. Like I try to capture all of that. To me, they're apparel that I feel like is limited. You know, like things that you can't buy at arenas. So I cherish those shirts. I think I've won like maybe 2 in my basketball going career, and I cherish those shirts for life.
Love that. Love to hear that.
But okay, let's just get into this big question. Gabby, Jenna, one of you guys explain how you guys met, because you briefly touched up on it earlier.
You want to take this one, or you want me to take this one?
You do it, because I'm laughing. I'm just thinking about Chicago and everything. I can't.
Oh, Chicago was a whole other conversation. All-Star this year.
Oh yeah.
So Jenna and I met actually at the audition for the Westchester Knicks, and I found out this was my second season with Westchester. I had worked as a hype squad member and as a substitute stage manager whenever it was needed in my first season, and I had gotten hired just prior to that to be the stage manager, floor director for the 2020 season. And our boss at the time was like, I really want you to help be involved in auditions for our new host. I was so hype about it. And I remember Jenna had this striped number on, this matching 2-piece set, and I came in here like a fourth. And I think the thing about Westchester, that's what I love, and it's what our boss actually said, coming into Westchester, is that she wanted to see if she was good at her job as she thinks she is. So Westchester was the perfect market for that, because you get the support of the Garden, but you get the freedom to play and have fun in a smaller setting like the G League. And the G League just is fun. There's stuff that you can do in G League that you can't do in the NBA from a presentation standpoint. And so that was the lens that we had going into audition. So, we had a few members from our squad, and then there's Jenna with her sassy little outfit. And I remember her there. We had all these fun games to try to see how hosts would respond. One of our hype squad members had to run across the court but pretend to fall, so in case it was a dress and dribble and a kid fell, how they would respond in these situations. And I remember Jenna just crushed it. I think across the board we were all like, this girl's a vibe. Okay, she might be it. And then Jenna was it. We hired Jenna. Greatest decision. And it was just an instant chemistry, and it was funny. We actually had one of our fans thought that Jenna and I were sisters, and our just friendship and working relationship really developed throughout the season. I missed one game for my grandma's 90th birthday, and this fan was like, sisters are back. We're so excited they're back together. So that just shows that kind of vibe translates. And yeah, so I met Jenna through that, and since then, we've become great friends, great colleagues. We traveled to All-Star together, and yeah, lots of fun.
Yeah, and also I noticed both of you guys do content for J Sector. What do you guys love about doing content for J Sector? Starting with you, Gabby.
So I met Gerard at All-Star Weekend, and I'm not really shy in the personality department. So I just kind of put who I am out there. And I remember a friend of mine at the time had FaceTimed me as we were going to leaving the airport to go to our hotel, and was telling me all about these new Nike Blazers from the Coming to America collection. And I was like, oh, what are those sneakers? And Gerard was like, who is this person? Who is she talking to? I think she's flirting, but I thought I heard her talking about sneakers. I don't really know. Like, we need to have a conversation. And like, already I was listening to 7 Footers podcast. Shouts to Jenna and Gerard, because they do such amazing work every week in the basketball space. And yeah, Gerard and I started talking from there, and he was like, I feel like we need to do something. So this ideation process actually started before COVID. And once things got locked down, we were like, this is the perfect time to really brainstorm and dive in and do things the right way. So that's how we started KNS.
Nice. Same question to you, Jenna, because I know you do something with Sector as well.
Yes, and shout out to KNS, love it, check it out. Yeah, I met Gerard. I was actually just moving into the sports space, and so was he, ironically. I didn't know at the time, obviously I didn't know him, and we were both invited to the same Nike event at the NBA store in New York City. So I went there, and we had to wait for like the new collection or whatever to be shown. So like all of us journalists were like sitting there, and I bumped into him, like literally physically bumped into him. And we started talking, and we just started really vibing and explaining how we were both in the trying to get into the sports space and really make a name for ourselves. So, people would take us seriously, from PR people to other journalists and things like that. And we both were like, exchange numbers, exchange emails, and we're just like, let's do something. Let's create something. Let's do a podcast. Podcasts are getting huge. And like, because this was years ago, and now podcasts are obviously incredible and everywhere and for every subject. So we started recording in my apartment, in a random lounge in my apartment building. Then we moved on to renting space and equipment, and we just kept doing it. And, we're here a few years later, and we love it. We've become great friends. Now we have Gabby. We're like a little trio, and it's just nice. It's like a little family. And I care for Gerard, like I care for Gabby, like they're dear friends. And it's nice to be in a space and have these people who will create these passion projects with you, because a lot of people won't. They won't take the time out of their coveted hours of freedom outside of work and things like that. So yeah, Gerard's a good dude. He really is. He's funny. He puts up with our antics. I mean, I'm basically late to every episode, hence this one. And
I don't want to say it.
And he just like rolls his eyes, and he's like, oh, here we go. And I'm like, Gerard, what color should I get my nails today? What should I do my lipstick? And he's like, I can't handle you, get out of my face. I'm like, okay, love you too. It's
At least you don't make him take selfies like I do. I'm like, Gerard, I need a fit pic. We need a picture for the quote every week. We need to do a drop every week.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, stop putting me to work like this. But no, he's the best. He really is the best.
Let me guess, you and Gabby, this is crazy, blah, blah, blah. I can't handle you. I'm like, okay.
I'm still waiting for our crossover episode. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, we can do, yeah. Where's my crossover episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gerard.
Nah,
Yeah,
but on a serious note, no, like, Gabby, for the KNS, what is the favorite interview that you've done up until this point? Because I've seen you interview a lot of big people, like, you interviewed somebody for the Ball Journal, you interviewed Vic Joseph, you interviewed countless stars. Well, yeah. What are your favorite interview up until this point?
I mean, we've been very fortunate for us being such a new show. Like, we've had some people in my network that I've talked to that have been like, I'd love to do the show. Like, or people that we don't know, like Enzo Amore from WWE reached out to me and he was like, your show seems really cool. Like, I'd love to do it. And he just kind of like took over the interview, like came in super hot. But I'm like, these player exclusives, do you have a wrestling? Like, that to me what it's all about, right? And I don't want to say that there's one favorite, because even people that I've known for years that we've had on the show, they bring something new to the table. And I think for us with our show, yes, we have to talk about the launches. And of course we love Nike and Jordan Brand and Adidas and the big brands and all that they're doing, because the culture does not exist without them. But for us, it's about uncovering those stories, right? And like what sneakers means to people, because that's what the community is about. Like, that's the difference between the culture and the community, right? Sure, the hype beasts are what drives the creativity and the culture, but you know, the average person isn't spending $600 on a resale pair. And if they do, it might not mean so much to them. But what we like to tap into is, you know, is it your first pair of Jordans, or one of our guests, after her mom passed, every major event that she's had, she's worn a pair of her mom's Nikes. So like, those are the stories. Or like one of our guests, a YouTuber that we had, a content creator who's amazing, he was telling us the first pair of 13s that he ever saw, someone had thrown them in the trash. And he was like, I just wanted to touch them and feel them and see what they felt like when he was a kid. And when they came out and relaunched during Last Dance, he was like, I have to get them now that I can afford them on my own. That's the kind of story and culture that we want to tap into. So it's very hard for me to pick our favorite guests in that sense. I think the one for me that was most like full circle, just because I grew up going to Nets games, was when we had Kenny Anderson on, and I like dusted off my old Kenny Anderson jersey from my storage unit from the New Jersey Nets, and like we're sitting there and I'm like, don't make a face, this is so cool, don't make a face. And he was like, wait, are you rocking my jersey right now? And I was like, you noticed? This is so cool. And he was so lovely and so nice. I mean, he got emotional on the show. Like, there was just like a great vibe and connection. And like I said, I grew up going to basketball games, so a try for Special K for me every time he hit that three. To then come full circle and be able to interview him on our show in one of our earlier episodes, like that's super cool for me. But all of our guests have been amazing.
I mean, I'm no surprise, and yeah, you notice you're not a fan of the Brooklyn Nets. You know they're paying homage to the New Jersey Nets from the Devin days, right? Like the 80s, right? They're paying homage to that. You gotta at least go to the Barclays for that. And yeah, since we're talking sneakers, I remember back when I was younger, I was always put on the spot. People would be like, yo, you wear some nice sneakers, you wear some nice sneakers. I always remember, I mean, I don't recall what type of sneakers I was wearing, but I know they were catching up to
nice.
a ton of people. So yeah. Now, same question that applies to Jenna. What are your favorite episodes you've done with Jay Such up until this point?
Oh man. I think my favorite guest that we had on was Jaren Jackson Jr. because Gerard loves him, first of all, so he totally fanboyed and it was hilarious. Beforehand though, he was obviously incredibly professional during the interview. He's gonna like literally kill me. But that's his guy, and like just see Gerard get so happy, and I know how passionate he is about, you know, the content that we create and the content that he creates on his own. It was nice to see him get so excited about that. And Jaren Jackson Jr. was hilarious. We chopped it up, we were laughing, it was fun, and I really walked away from that interview also. It was not one of the first times, but it was one of the times that like I walked away and I was like, I even told Gerard after, I was like, we had a great flow. Like that was good. We didn't even rehearse. We bounced off each other. We didn't, you know, nobody like bogarted the conversation. It was just kind of like the three of us flowing. It was really nice. That was a good one. Gerard had Michelle Roberts from the NBA on, and she gave us some great insight. And I think just some of my favorite episodes with Gerard are the ones when we go to All-Star and we go on the ground together and we like get content and like create stuff off the fly, and like just seeing that like what started as a passion project, like we're at All-Star weekend, like it's so cool. And to see like even an email, you know, they don't come up often in my inbox, but to see something from a PR person that's like, you know, I think this will be great for 7-footers, like whatever. And I'm just like, wow, like people are seeing or noticing or thinking of this project that we do for fun. We do it out of love. I'm telling you, no one is paying us to do this or anything. Like it's just a passion thing. And I think we all can agree that we're the only ones that can understand this fully in this conversation when we talk about passion projects, because we're journalists in a right, or we're all in this space for some reason. So we get it. Content creators, I'm telling you, they have a special code with each other. It's really weird. Like we get it. You know what I mean? Wow. You ever see those tweets like share your friend's stuff or like, right?
It's true though. So much work goes into it more than people see. You just see the finished product. You don't see the editing. You don't see the ideation. You know, it's not like we're a big media outlet where we have a whole team that's helping with that. Every guest that we secure, it's because of us. Every graphic that we do, it's because of us. Most of the time, like we're not getting seeded products, but we're out there buying things and trying things because we're fans of the product as well, and just trying to get those reps in and create and do something that's different than what everyone else is doing, you know? And so I agree, there's definitely a code, and shouts to all the content creators out there, because you guys do so much work and nobody realizes how much really goes into all that you do.
No.
Yeah. Shauntay, what can you learn from this conversation up until this point? Because there's been a lot of points being brought up by both sides.
It's truly amazing to sit and listen to you guys, or should I say ladies, at this point. But, you know, just having dreams and going after them, I'm trying to just learn and listen to you guys on that. Retrospect, when I grew up, I danced my whole life, loved it, and that's my passion. And then once I got to high school, I was telling Gabby before, you know, I was forced into sports. It was one of those things in private school, you have to play sports. I started playing soccer. I liked it, and then I played basketball and I absolutely hated it. But one of the reasons why is because I was a dancer. I was a girly girl. I wasn't really the it factor for, you know, what a basketball team really needed. And my team was on another level, like winning the championship every year. But the biggest thing for me was being that fan, being that support system, always being there for my team, and I absolutely love that. And then running track in college, dream come true. But one thing I've learned, especially being a media personality in New York City, is that you have to create your own content. You have to do what you love. And like you said, the passion product, no one gets to see the bloopers, the hours of questions that you have to create, the people that we book. You know, I just finished a season of doing a podcast with all females, and it was, needless to say, it's like we're doing all of the work and people just see the final product. And they just want and then you have to deal with the new age millennium people. Right now, it's like, I only want to see an interview for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4, and it's like, hello, you can't get the most out of a 1 minute interview. You know, that comes with the highlight reel. So just really going after it and just trying new things is definitely something that I'm learning.
Wow. Yeah, it's a good thing that you can learn a lot from this conversation. But let's just address the elephant that the New York Knicks drafted, Obi Toppin. What are your impressions about that? Gabby?
I mean, I think we got a gem in the rough. I really do. I think that we drafted nicely. I would have hoped us to get a higher pick, but, you know, there's always the hype around that with the Knicks. And it's just, you deal with the reality that you're given, right? And I think that we did a really good job with that drafting. I hope, and we talked about this a little bit offline, I hope we take the time to really cultivate him and build with him and build our lineup with him. And I mean, same with RJ, you know, I hope we continue to teach him and continue to grow, because draft picks are important, but you do need to have that senior player who has the more experience to really help cultivate them. So this off season, I mean, I know the season's gonna be rapidly approaching. I'm curious to see how the training begins, who we're gonna bring in to really mentor these new players and these rookies. So I think it's a good pick, and I'm excited to see how he does.
Jenna?
I think Obi Toppin is the perfect pick, just because, first of all, on all the morning shows, everybody was like, oh my God, the Knicks did something right, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, we did. Don't hate. But yeah, like Obi Toppin, he's from the East Coast. He's from New York. He's so happy to be here and so grateful. And he's got a cool story too. And I think he's a great rebounder. He's massive. I think he's going to add so much value to the team. And he's going to gel with the young core that they have. And again, it's no secret that they're rebuilding. So he's just going to add even more space on the floor for them. And really, again, it's all about the chemistry. And I think that with all of the new people that they've brought in, I think they're doing very well so far. I give them a lot of credit. I really do. And that's that. I mean, the Knicks are special. And no matter what, either way, it's the Knicks. It's like the Celtics and these dynasties that you see. There's very few of them, and there's a reason for it, and they're special no matter what.
Yeah.
I did the same thing like Gabby. I just want them to be in a position to help and flourish and make him the star player that he already is within the seasons, because before we spoke about this and having players come for 1 to 2 seasons and then being traded and then coming back, you know, just having that sense of loyalty of being from New York City and representing that, I'm like, you can't get any better than that.
Yeah, and when you saw his reaction when he finally was getting drafted to the New York Knicks, you could tell the guy was really embracing the moment.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Not to mention the fact that his father played at Hoops in the Sun.
Played at Rutgers. Yeah, everywhere.
His father was a straight street baller. I've seen his house Hoops in the Sun. Obi-Wan Kenobi, no joke. Imagine what Obi Toppin can do when he's a box office seller. This kid could be the change that the New York Knicks needed. You just gotta put up the same type of high-flying dunks that he pulled off when he was in college at Dayton, and we'll be all right.
Facts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a very interesting conversation we've had here between Knicks fans and Knicks fellows. But what went through your mind when you found out that the Knicks weren't invited to the NBA bubble?
Jenna? I have so many thoughts on this, but go ahead, Jenna.
I mean, to be fair, I wasn't entirely shocked because we didn't have the greatest season. It's a very weird circumstance. I think that obviously this is something the NBA has never tackled before, right? So they did their best and they did it well. However, I do think they should have done something with the other teams, maybe a separate bubble, maybe a conditioning bubble or something to make these guys feel a little included. But, some would also come and argue that this isn't a kindergarten and not everybody gets a trophy. I get it. But, it's a global pandemic. The NBA tried and everything. I wish the Knicks would have been there, of course. But that just means it's more motivation to come back stronger. I think we're on the up and up.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Jenna's point, the part for me that I wish the Knicks were invited to do something, and the other teams that didn't quite make the cut, is because they've been resting for a very long time. I think now going into the new season, especially because the playoff teams have had so little time to rest, it kind of evens the playing field a little bit more by having all the teams involved. I mean, if I were the NBA, I think the NBA did a fantastic job, so I don't fault them for that. That's just for me as a Knicks fan. What I would have wished to see, you look at the stats with Mike Miller, right, after Fizz, and if Miller was the coach the entire season, the Knicks would have been at that bubble. Yes. Because he knows how to cultivate players that aren't necessarily stars, right? Like, I thought Fizz had some great energy. There was a lot of promise, but it's all great that LeBron endorsed him, but LeBron doesn't play for the Knicks one. And I'm sure LeBron also is someone who's a very hands-on player in terms of personal coaching style. So he likes to have an opinion and a say. So, for me, Fizz is used to working with more players like that don't need as much coaching. And so Miller coming in, being the most winningest coach in G League history, to come in to take over for the Knicks. And, we didn't win every game, but our record was so much better. And if we kept up that momentum, I would have loved to see what chances we had. I don't think we were fully out of it in the way that people wrote us off, just because there was a changing of the guards. And that really kind of flew under the radar because people don't always like to talk about the nicest stories around the Knicks. They like to talk about what we do wrong. But that was a decision that I thought was very smart and really focused on the younger players and having them work together as a team and seeing how we can come together. So I'm hoping that energy translates to this season.
Wow. That is just crazy. But let's talk about, what do you guys think are the worst trades the New York Knicks have made from since you started watching?
No comment.
Gabby.
No comment.
No comment.
Jenna.
I mean, we're probably contractually obligated not to talk about this. But, hey, it's trial and error. That's why it's trade season and it's rumor season and free agency is crazy right now. I wouldn't necessarily say worst trades and things like that. I think we could have gone about things a little bit better. I mean, everybody has their players and their moments, Melo or whoever. I'm not naming anything that, in my opinion, but I mean, people would say other things along those lines. But again, it all comes down to finding, in my opinion, the right mix, right? Like Gabby said, Fizz was great, but it just wasn't a fit for the Knicks. So again, finding the right fit, finding the right pieces, it's trial and error. It really is.
Wow. Okay, let's just get to one of your favorite Knicks games that you guys ever watch.
Ooh.
Gabby.
I mean, I think I was telling you this. Whenever the Knicks are in the playoffs, which is not very often, I always try to get a ticket. This was before I started working with the Knicks. Those, just in terms of energy, the hope, it's like I said, there's something about the Garden. Even like the lights on the ceiling that are so iconic, it just feels electric. For me, those are my favorite games. Of course, it always feels good when you're winning. But it's more about the moments, right? And I said this before. Like if Mario Hezonja has a crazy block against LeBron that causes us to either take the lead or prevent the other team from winning, those are the best moments. And that's what Knicks basketball has been to me. Not necessarily a great game, but moments. I mean, I think I've been very fortunate enough to see some great games and some great teams play, especially since I've been working at the Garden. But I will say, when LeBron in his last season in Cleveland, that was probably one of my favorite games working there. It was my first season. I was able to bring my brother courtside to watch the shoot around beforehand. We took our little sneaker pick on the court. That was really special. And then Hanukkah night last year when I was able to bring my whole family to the game. I think, like I said, for me, basketball is about not just the sport, but the arena, the energy, the vibe, the moment. So having opportunities to do that, those are my favorite times around basketball.
Oh, I was actually referring to moments, whether it's regular season or playoffs, like the two clutch shots Carmelo Anthony hit against the Chicago Bulls in 2012, or the winning tippet by David Lee against the Charlotte Bobcats, which is now the Charlotte Hornets, or Jamal Crawford's 50-point performance, or Carmelo Anthony's 60-point performance against the Charlotte Bobcats. I was referring to moments like that, but you got
those are great moments. Like, I don't know, the Hezonja dunk or the block for me with Hezonja, and then just after the KP trade, let me tell you, the fact that the Knicks swept Dallas in those two games, whew, nothing beats that.
Yeah, when Marcus Morris hit the clutch shot against KP's Mavericks, it was on national television. That was nuts. The Knicks rarely have many clutch moments. I mean, ever since the 2000s nowadays. But when they do have clutch moments, it will be something to talk about because, you know, us Knicks fans are hungry for close game victories.
Absolutely.
That's what eluded the New York Knicks throughout the 2010s and 2020.
But Gabby makes a good point. It's all about the memories. I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago where I wanted to do things different and my family was away, or so, I don't know, but I had brought tickets for the Christmas game. And, you know, the Knicks had a game at that time, so I bought the tickets. I don't even know what row it was in, but I was like high up because it was like one of those last minute things. And for me, it was just like seeing what players have to sacrifice. And that's something that we talked about a little bit earlier. Like, and you guys said like holidays, weather, no matter what it is, I think those moments where it is celebrating something means a lot to me, to know that I can come out, to know that they're playing for the fans, right? You know, Christmas and Thanksgiving and all of those holidays that they're there. Those are moments where they want to be with their family and doing what they want to do. And sometimes it is tough for them, but when they come out and like excel on those nights, I'm like, yeah, this is the best game ever.
Yeah, the New York Knicks, win or lose, they always put together some crazy Christmas games. I remember like I went to a Christmas Day game against the Miami Heat in 2009. Dwayne Wade, even like it was the year before LeBron and Bosh joined them, he was still killing it in a Madison Square Garden court. Of course, what you expect is D Wade.
That's right.
I remember going with me and my cousins, but Jenna, what are your favorite Knicks games that you ever watched or attended?
Well, I'll keep it short and sweet because Gabby mentioned it, and she was actually working that game that I attended, the Dallas game, where it was right after the KP trade, and Knicks blew them out, and it was like their second night doing it. I was at the game. I saw Gabby and the squad doing their thing on the floor, shooting the cannons, everything. And it was just fun. The energy in the Garden was back for the first time in a very long time. Mm-hmm. I know we keep saying this, but for real, the energy in the Garden is I just don't know what it is. It's like something goes through your body. Like that Westchester Knicks game, the first one we ever did, we had it at the Garden because, I don't know, there was some like...
The court fell in, remember?
Yeah,
the court had fallen in the day before.
Yeah, there was technical difficulties, whatever, wrong with the court. And I remember remember just walking out onto the court while the guys were warming up, and we're just trying to figure out how to make all the cues happen in the random spots and everything. And I just remember looking up like in the rafters and just like staring around and being like, I live next to a mountain in Pennsylvania, and I am standing on Madison Square Garden's court right now with the microphone in my hands. Like, what? Somebody better come kick me out of here, because I know I'm not supposed to be here. Like, what is happening? It's just, the Garden is just incredible. Yeah. But that Dallas game sticks out for sure.
And I think, it doesn't matter what team you're a fan of also. There just is something about the Garden. Like, and one of the second Dallas game, one of my good friends from Dallas comes up to New York every once in a while. Like, we'll go to Giants Cowboys games together. Like, Mozzie's the best. And I remember asking my Knicks boss, being like, I have a favor. Is it okay if my friend comes down after the game? Like, sometimes they turn over the court really quickly, whether it's a concert or a hockey game. The Garden staff is amazing. So I was like, let me just make sure. And I just told him his only rule was he couldn't wear any Dallas gear to the game if he wanted to come on the court. And for someone to see someone, like, we get so used to it working in it, and it's not that we don't appreciate it, but you almost forget how magical it is, because that's our office. We're there all the time, and we are very privileged to be able to be there. But bringing my friend on the court, he cried. He was like, can I touch the court real quick? Is that okay? And I was like, my heart. I was like, you kind of forget how iconic and magical it is when you're so used to being there. That it was, for me, that was one of the best parts about that game. Not only did we beat his team, but, being able to provide that moment for my friends and seeing how much it meant to him. Like, there's nothing like the Garden. I can't explain it. I'm just with Jenna on that one.
Yeah, but part of what made Madison Square Garden the greatest place to go to for Knicks fans is the Patrick Ewing era. Like, when you guys first watched Patrick Ewing, like, what went through your mind?
Same.
It's this special person in my life that's changing it for the better.
Like a superhero.
Legendary, iconic. I mean, these words that we associate so little with people come to mind because there's so few of them, and just, it's special to know that he left such a mark on the Garden and with the Knicks. And, the same with the Allen Houston era and, a bunch of others that are on a short list. It's really cool. I mean, there's a reason that stars come to the Garden and sit courtside on the floor. You're not seeing, no offense, you're not seeing Adam Sandler in Oklahoma City sitting courtside, or, it's the Garden. People go to the Garden even if they're not interested in what's happening. It's just what you do. It's the Knicks. It's craziness. And Patrick Ewing is added to that.
And we kind of talked about this before we started recording, but one thing I think is so interesting about Patrick Ewing is that, and about 90s basketball in general, is I felt like the 90s were an era of so many superstars that are Hall of Famers that don't have championship rings. It was about the loyalty to the team, right? It's like Ewing was there to grind and grind again with New York. It wasn't about like, where can I go next? I want to be here because I want to be here and I want to win with New York. And like that heart, players like him made other players around him better. Like John Starks was undrafted, and then to come in and play together, that chemistry. I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, that's why for me, not in these Knicks, that's my favorite. I'm hoping we can get a vibe like that going again. But Patrick Ewing, I mean, he was a big crux in that whole scheme. I mean, there's a reason he was one of the 5 players in Space Jam. I know I talk about that movie all the time. It's one of my favorites. But, I just like there were legendary players there. It wasn't about the ring. It was about the heart, right? And the effort and grinding on the court night after night.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that Space Jam is one of your favorite movies of all time. And we had a lot of basketball movies. Let's get fundamental with this conversation. We had a lot of basketball movies that came out right after that, between Coach Carter, the 2 Light Mike movies. There's going to be a Space Jam 2 with LeBron James. There's Love and Basketball. Like, if you had to choose between watching Space Jam and Coach Carter and Like Mike, which one would you pick?
I mean, Coach Carter's great. Like Mike is cool. I thought Coach Carter's a great movie. I just rewatched Love and Basketball again. It's been playing on VH1 a lot. Shouts to VH1. Blue Seats is another, there's some other movies that are my favorite, you know, with Shaq and Penny Hardaway. Blue Chips, sorry, not Blue Seats. Blue Chips is one of my favorite basketball movies, but I'm gonna have to pick Space Jam, and I've debated about this with Gerard, and I don't know, Jenna, if you have. Gerard has not seen Space Jam, and he gets so mad at me whenever I say this because he said he was a little older than the demographic age, and I was like, it's a classic. And because we talked about Space Jam 2 coming out, right? And I was like, why does LeBron always have to try to follow in Jordan's footsteps? He's got to make his own lane. He doesn't even have his own number. He has to take Jordan's number. LeBron is amazing on the court. I can never knock that. Like, there's a divine intervention over him. Like, you see the light that shines from above, even when you're inside on LeBron. Like, he's a generational player. He's a GOAT. Jordan is the GOAT. I don't know. I'm still going to go see Space Jam 2, but it's not going to be the same for me. But Space Jam is my favorite.
Yeah, I remember interviewing Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny voice actor at the park that just opened up where they literally did like a basketball court homages with Space Jam on the floor. That was just really nice. You can check out the interview on my YouTube channel. But yeah, Space Jam really defined not just cartoons, but basketball culture in general. And these play an important role in basketball. I remember
one of my favorite movies is actually He Got Game. And that's when I fell in love with Ray Allen. I'm like, oh, Jesus. I'm like, wow, just it being a New York-based movie, you know, out in Coney Island, and to hear their stories and struggles. That's what I love about watching movies about certain basketball players. Like, anybody, like, if there's a movie that was made from somebody and I'm watching it on Netflix, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I love their story, and now I'm their #1 fan. And then the next week is another documentary, and I'm like, oh my God, look at this person. This is like so amazing. But I love movies. I can't wait to see that movie come out. But, you know, everybody has their own path and their own journey. So we'll hope that the person that you mentioned before, you know, it's elite on my list. But, you know, I do think that it's about generations, you know, and where you know, how you grew up, where you grew up. My brother, right, every name in the house, Reggie Miller, like, it was like that was the name that I grew up on. So when people ask me, like, who's your favorite, I go through people, and people are like, how do you know that? I'm like, my brother, that was his favorite, so then he passed it down to me. And I'm like, you know, just gotta do what you do.
Yeah. Jenna, you want to say something about this?
Well, second to Gabby, I watched Love and Basketball the other night on VH1. That's definitely my favorite. I love Space Jam 2. I'm a huge LeBron fan, so I really can't wait to see the second Space Jam. And more new, but Uncle Drew. I loved Uncle Drew. I got to cover the red carpet for it, so that's why it kind of sticks out to me. But I remember walking away after watching Uncle Drew and thinking there really are, especially for young kids and young players, there are so many lessons in Uncle Drew about the game, about sportsmanship, about being a teammate, really. And they're not corny or anything. It's a good movie. Give it a chance, even if you're not a Kyrie fan.
I love that you just said Uncle Drew, by the way. I feel like Juwanna Mann is another classic that is kind of was.
Oh, man. You're talking about the American guy in the league for. You know what? I'm not even going to say what he did because it's a family-friendly content, but he knows he's grown enough to have children, and he's going to do nonsense that he did. I'm not going to even say the description of how it started. How he went from playing in the men's league to the women's basketball league, playing alongside some of the best players in WNBA at that time. I'm not going to say what he did, but let's just say he's wrong for that. Shauntay, you mentioned you love that movie. What would you mind watching it?
He Got Game?
No, Juwanna Mann.
Oh, Juwanna Mann. Oh my God. It's just the comedic parts of it. It was just funny. But one thing that I guess I would say one of my favorite parts about it is just like the sense of traveling and that team. I miss that so much. And I think, not to say that I took advantage of it or not taking advantage of it, but when I was in college and I was in high school and being on a team, that team camaraderie, I didn't know now meant so much to me. And being a part of a family and traveling and just, you know, wins and losses belong to you. So watching that movie and seeing, obviously they had a comedic side to it. But I love movies to see like how well teams work with each other. The locker room. I'm like, oh my God, there's been so much stuff that people do not know that happens behind the scenes. You know, before that whistle blows, before you get on that court. I absolutely love that energy, and I miss it now. Like I miss being a part of something like that now.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, this is a very interesting discussion, and sadly, we're gonna have to wrap up this episode of Nothing But That Sports Talk, which is basically like the longest episode I've done up until this point.
Of course, it's the one that we joined.
Thank you guys for stopping by, and thank you for tuning in. To all the big balls out there, get your head in the game. And we can't wait for Knicks basketball to come back, because this is like literally when December come around, this will be like the longest amount of months we had without any Knicks basketball. But they'll be back on the court by the time we get to the holidays. Stay tuned.